AITA for exposing my wife after she used my sister's accident to control our home? My name is Flynn, I'm 41, and I'd been married to Marissa long enough to know the exact sound of her car pulling into the driveway before she even turned off the engine. I was the guy who kept extra phone chargers in the kitchen drawer, labeled leftovers because my wife hated mystery containers, and answered my little sister's calls even when I already knew they were going to be messy. I thought that made me dependable. Marissa eventually decided it made me easy to corner. Before everything fell apart, our marriage looked normal from the outside. Not perfect, not a storybook, but steady enough that people assumed we were fine. We had our routines. She liked the dishwasher loaded a certain way. I liked bills paid 3 days early. She hated when shoes piled up by the door. I hated when people said cruel things and called them just being honest. That last one became a bigger problem than I expected. My sister, Nora, is 34. She is not helpless, but she has had a few rough seasons. A bad breakup years ago. A roommate situation that went sideways. A job loss during a slow stretch. Nothing dramatic enough to define her whole life, but enough for Marissa to create a version of Nora in her head, the little sister who always needed saving. Anytime Nora called me, Marissa's shoulders tightened. "What is it now?" she would ask, even before I answered. Sometimes it was nothing. A question about a car repair. A text about our Aunt Elaine's birthday. Once she called because she found an old box of our dad's records and wanted to know if I wanted them. But Marissa had already decided Nora was a crisis in human form. One night, maybe a year before the accident, Nora called while Marissa and I were cleaning up after dinner. I put the phone on speaker because my hands were wet from washing a pan. Nora asked if I remembered the name of the mechanic I used after my battery died. Marissa laughed under her breath. Nora heard it. I saw the way Marissa's face changed when she realized the phone was on speaker, but she didn't apologize. After I gave Nora the number and hung up, I said, "You know she could hear you, right?" Marissa shrugged and shoved a plate into the dishwasher too hard. She's a grown woman. At some point, grown women figure things out. She asked for a mechanic's number. She always asks for something. I should have pushed harder then. Instead, I told myself Marissa was tired. I told myself every spouse gets irritated with in-laws sometimes. I told myself there was a difference between not liking Nora and being cruel to her. I was wrong about that difference. Marissa's mother, Diane, had her own favorite line about it. A wife should never have to compete with a sister. She said it at cookouts, at birthday dinners, in the middle of conversations that had nothing to do with Nora. She would tilt her head like she was offering wisdom instead of planting a knife. Trevor, Marissa's older brother, usually backed her up. "A husband's first job is his wife," he said once while cracking open a beer in our kitchen, as if he had just solved marriage for all mankind. I agreed with the sentence in a normal way. Of course my wife mattered. Of course the person I built a life with came first in daily decisions, finances, plans, and loyalty. But Marissa and Diane used "come first" to mean no one else gets to matter. I didn't understand that clearly until Nora's accident. It happened on a Thursday afternoon. I was at home sorting through old mail when my phone rang from a number I didn't recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in me picked up. The woman on the other end asked if I was Flynn. Then she told me my sister had been in an accident. For a second, I forgot how words worked. I remember staring at a coupon flyer on the counter while the woman explained that Nora was conscious, that she had been taken to the hospital, and that a delivery truck had clipped the driver's side of her car when another car stopped short in front of her. The details came in pieces. Totaled car, bruised ribs, knee injury, possible concussion. No surgery right then, but follow-up appointments. I drove to the hospital with my phone plugged into the charger because the battery was already dying. I called Marissa twice. She didn't pick up. I texted her. Nora was in an accident. At hospital. I'm going there now. She replied 20 minutes later. Is she alive? I stared at that message in the parking garage longer than I should have. Yes, I typed. Hurt, but alive. Her answer came back almost immediately. Okay, keep me posted. That was it. Inside, Nora looked smaller than I had ever seen her. She had a purple bruise blooming along one cheekbone, a hospital wristband around her wrist, and a stiff brace around her knee. Her discharge papers were on the rolling table beside her, covered in codes and follow-up notes she clearly didn't understand. When she saw me, her mouth trembled. "I'm sorry," she said. That was the first thing out of her mouth. I pulled the plastic chair close to her bed. For getting hit by a truck? She tried to laugh, but it hurt her ribs. She winced and pressed a hand to her side. The practical problems came fast. Her car had been towed, and the tow yard was charging storage fees by the day. Her insurance claim was under review, which meant nothing would move quickly. She had a temporary place, but it had stairs, and the bathroom was on a different floor from where she slept. Her friend had started a GoFundMe without asking because she meant well, and Nora was mortified by it. "I'm not asking to be rescued forever," Nora said, staring at the blanket instead of me. "I just need somewhere safe while I figure out the insurance and appointments. A few weeks, maybe 2 months at most. If that's impossible, I get it." I didn't answer right away because I knew what saying yes would mean at home. But I also knew what saying no would mean while my sister sat in a knee brace, trying not to cry from embarrassment. "I'll talk to Marissa," I said. "We'll figure something out." Nora's face tightened. "Don't blow up your house over me." That sentence stayed with me. I got home that night after 9 o'clock. Marissa was in the kitchen, rinsing a mug with sharp, angry movements even though it looked clean already. Her purse was still on the counter, her coat still on. She had been waiting. "How bad?" she asked. "Bad enough," I said. "No surgery yet, but she can barely move around. Her car's totaled. Insurance is dragging. She can't do stairs right now." Marissa leaned against the sink. And I want to talk about letting her stay here temporarily." Her face shut down. "No." I hadn't even finished. I took out the folded paper I had written on in the hospital parking lot. I knew Marissa liked structure, so I had made it as clear as possible. 8 weeks, I said. Maximum. We write it down. She uses the spare room. No guests without asking. She contributes to groceries when the insurance starts moving or when she can. We review it every 2 weeks. If it hurts us, we adjust. Marissa laughed once, but there was no humor in it. "You made a contract for moving your sister into our house." I made boundaries. "No, Flynn. You made a way to feel reasonable while you choose her." "She was hit by a truck, Marissa." "She's 34. 34-year-olds can get hurt. She doesn't need help. She needs consequences." That was the first moment I felt something cold move through me. Not anger exactly. Something quieter. A warning. Consequences for what? I asked. "Driving to work." Marissa looked away. I should have understood then that we weren't arguing about Nora sleeping in the spare room. We were arguing about whether Marissa could make compassion look like betrayal. Over the next few days, the house changed. Marissa didn't yell much. That would have been easier, honestly. Instead, she moved around me like a wounded wife in a movie only she was filming. Quiet sighs. Closed doors. Phone calls that stopped when I walked into the room. She started using phrases that sounded like therapy but landed like threats. "I'm allowed to have boundaries. You keep making me compete. I need emotional safety in my own home." When I said, "I agree with boundaries. That's why I wrote them down," she rolled her eyes. "You don't get it." She also started talking to her family. I knew because the group chat changed. The thread had existed for years. It included Marissa, me, Diane, Trevor, a couple of cousins, Elaine from my side, and a few relatives who mostly reacted with thumbs-up emojis and never got involved. It had been used for Thanksgiving menus, birthday reminders, and one very long argument about who took home the wrong casserole dish. Then Marissa wrote, "I can't believe I'm being made the villain for wanting my marriage protected." Diane responded almost instantly, "A wife should never have to beg to come first." Trevor added, "Nobody is saying Nora deserves what happened, but boundaries matter." Then one of Marissa's cousins wrote, "Flynn, silence says a lot." I stared at the screen. Marissa had not mentioned the 8-week plan. She had not mentioned the spare room rules. She had not mentioned that Nora had asked for help because stairs were unsafe with her knee brace and bruised ribs. She had turned my sister's accident into a referendum on whether I loved my wife. I typed a response, deleted it, typed another one, and deleted that too. Then I took screenshots. Not because I had a plan yet, but because something told me I was going to need proof of what was actually being said. A few days later, Marissa came with me to the hospital for Nora's follow-up appointment. I thought maybe seeing Nora in person would soften her. Nora was moving slowly, one hand pressed against the wall whenever she had to stand. Her face still had bruising, yellow now at the edges. She held a folder of discharge papers and insurance emails against her chest like homework she was afraid to fail. Marissa kissed the air beside Nora's cheek. "I'm glad you're okay," she said. Nora smiled carefully. "Thanks." For about 10 minutes, Marissa behaved. Then Nora stepped away to talk to the billing desk, and Marissa leaned close to me. "I'm sorry she got hurt," she said, low enough that she thought Nora couldn't hear. "But she's a grown woman. Grown women figure it out." Nora did hear. I know, because her shoulders froze. She didn't turn around. She didn't defend herself. She just stood there with that folder in her hands, pretending the receptionist was saying something very important. I looked at Marissa. "Not here," I said. "What?" she whispered. "I'm not allowed to be honest." "Not cruel," I said. "There's a difference." Her jaw tightened. That weekend, Diane invited everyone to dinner. She said it would be good to clear the air. I didn't want to go. Nora definitely didn't want to go. But Elaine called me privately and said, "If you don't show up, they'll write the whole story without you." So we went. Nora wore loose jeans that fit over her brace and moved carefully through Diane's dining room. Elaine helped her into a chair without making a big show of it. Marissa watched like Nora was carrying mud across a white carpet. Dinner was dry chicken, salad, and tension. For the first 15 minutes, people talked around the issue. Weather, a cousin's new apartment, Trevor's car. Diane kept glancing at Marissa like they were waiting for a cue. Then Marissa set down her fork. "I just think we should be honest," she said. My stomach dropped. Nora looked at me. I saw panic in her eyes. Marissa turned to her. "I didn't marry Flynn so his sister could move into our life every time hers falls apart." The room went quiet. Nora's face went pale. Her hand tightened around her napkin. I felt heat rush up my neck, but I didn't explode. That is important. I wanted to. I wanted to say every ugly thing that had been building inside me. But I could see Diane already watching me, waiting for me to become the angry husband they needed me to be. So I put my fork down. "She almost lost everything last week," I said. "This is not a lifestyle choice." Trevor shook his head. "Come on, Flynn. You know how this looks." "No," Elaine said, softly but firmly. "How does a knee brace and a totaled car look to you?" Diane ignored her. "As a mother," Diane said, "I understand Marissa's fear. A woman needs security. She needs to know her husband won't make emotional decisions that put the marriage at risk. Letting my injured sister recover for a few weeks is not putting my marriage at risk," I said. Marissa's eyes flashed. "It is if you keep refusing to see what it does to me." Nora pushed her chair back slowly. The sound scraped across the floor. "I should go," she said. I stood up too. Marissa muttered, "Of course. Now everyone has to comfort Nora." I turned to her, and for 1 second I almost lost it. Elaine touched my arm under the table. "Don't," her face said. So I didn't. I drove Nora home in silence. Halfway there, she wiped under one eye and said, "I'm sorry. Stop apologizing. I don't want to be the reason you two fight." "You're not." But even as I said it, I wasn't sure I believed it. At home, Marissa acted like I had embarrassed her. "You made me look heartless," she said. I was standing by the dishwasher, holding a plate I hadn't even rinsed yet. "You told my injured sister she moves into our life every time hers falls apart." I said what everyone was thinking. "No, you said what you wanted everyone to think." She slammed the dishwasher rack and so hard the glasses rattled. "Your sister is not our responsibility. I never said she was yours alone. I said I wanted us to help within limits. She gets one foot in this house, and we will never get rid of her." "That is not true. You don't know that. I know the plan I wrote down. You and your plan." She laughed bitterly. "You think writing something on paper makes it safe?" That line sounded strange at the time. A few days later, it sounded like a warning I had missed. The first suspicious text showed up on our shared tablet. Marissa and I used it for recipes, streaming shows, and keeping a shared grocery list. It was connected to some of her messages because she had set it up that way years earlier and never cared enough to change it. I wasn't digging. I was looking for the grocery app because we were out of coffee. A preview dropped down from Diane. "If he brings his sister here, I'll make sure the house is protected." I froze. The message disappeared when the notification cleared, but the words stayed in my head. Protected from what? My sister sleeping in a spare room with a knee brace. I didn't open anything. I didn't try to access her phone. I didn't do anything that felt like crossing a line. But I did write the sentence down, along with the date and time. The next morning, Diane called me. That alone was unusual. Diane preferred speaking through Marissa unless she wanted to lecture me directly. Flynn, she said, sweetly. I hope you know we all care about Nora. When someone starts with that, they usually don't. I know this is stressful, she continued. But as a mother, I have to think about my daughter's security. What security? Her home, her future, her standing in her own marriage. I sat at the kitchen table, looking at the spot where Marissa had left her coffee mug. Diane, Nora staying temporarily doesn't change Marissa's standing in our marriage. You say that now. What are you asking? There was a pause. The house is in both your names, correct? My fingers tightened around the phone. Why? I'm just asking as a mother. That's not an answer. And the mortgage? Any lines of credit? Life insurance? Beneficiaries? I think when a husband starts making emotional choices, it's fair for his wife to want things clarified. There it was. Not concern. Inventory. I kept my voice even. I'm not discussing our finances with you. She gave a small, offended laugh. Well, that tells me quite a bit. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time. Then I opened our shared email. Again, I didn't hack anything. Marissa and I had a household inbox we both used for bills, warranties, insurance notices, and school fundraiser donations for nieces and nephews. All the boring married stuff. It was open on the laptop in the office because I had been checking an auto-pay confirmation. Near the top was an email I didn't recognize. Subject: following up regarding ownership transfer options. My skin went cold. I clicked it. It was from a document preparation office. Dry, professional, not dramatic. Following up regarding your questions about ownership transfer options and beneficiary update documentation. Please review the attached intake form before your scheduled consultation. We can discuss whether a transfer, post-nuptial style agreement, or beneficiary update best fits your stated goals. The email was addressed to Marissa. Diane was copied. There was an attachment with an intake form. I didn't fill anything out. I didn't download anything beyond saving the email as it existed in our shared inbox. I printed it. Then I printed the header showing the date. That was the moment I stopped wondering if I was paranoid. I called Grant the next day. Grant was an attorney a friend had used during a messy separation. I told him I needed advice, not a war. He told me to bring what I had and not to bring anything I did not have lawful access to. His office smelled like coffee and printer toner. I sat across from him with a folder that was already too thick for a marriage that had supposedly only been arguing about a spare room. Grant read quietly. He asked questions without reacting much. Did you sign anything? No. Did you agree in writing to transfer anything? No. Did you access a private device? No. Shared tablet preview, shared household inbox, group chat messages I'm in, and a screenshot Elaine sent me from the family chat. Good, he said. Keep it that way. He slid the email back toward me. Do not argue about this in the kitchen. Do not sign anything. Do not move marital funds recklessly. Do not empty accounts. Do not threaten. From now on, paper beats promises. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. What do I do about Nora? Help your sister in ways that are clean and documented, Grant said. Personal funds if legally appropriate. Direct payments when possible. Keep receipts. Do not let your wife's family turn your compassion into a financial fog. That sentence hit me hard because it was exactly what Marissa was trying to do. She wanted everything blurry. Feelings, obligations, fear, guilt, marriage, money. All of it blended together until I signed whatever she put in front of me just to prove I was a good husband. I left Grant's office with a different kind of calm. Not peace. Clarity. That week, I stopped discussing finances with Marissa casually. When she made comments like, "We need to talk about protecting our future," I said, "Put it in writing and I'll have counsel review it." She hated that. One night she stood in the doorway of the office while I was paying bills. So now I need a lawyer to talk to my husband? No, I said. You need a lawyer if you want me to sign property documents. Her expression flickered, just for a second. Then she recovered. I never said property documents. You didn't have to. She crossed her arms. I'm allowed to want security. I'm allowed to understand what I'm being asked to sign. You're making this ugly. No, I said. I'm keeping it clear. At the same time, I helped Nora without moving her into my house. That part mattered to me. Not because Marissa deserved to win, but because Nora deserved not to be used as the rope in a tug of war. I found a short-term accessible rental through someone Elaine knew. It wasn't fancy, but it had no stairs, a bathroom close to the bedroom, and a neighbor who checked in without hovering. I paid the first few weeks from my separate personal account after talking to Grant. I helped Nora call the insurance company, fax documents, and dispute the tow yard storage fees that were piling up because the claim was still under review. Nora hated every second of needing help. When we sat at her little rented kitchen table, surrounded by hospital papers and insurance emails, she pushed the GoFundMe link away like it was dirty. I don't want people thinking I'm begging. You're not begging, I said. You got hurt. I should be able to handle this. You are handling it. Handling it includes not sleeping near stairs when your knee barely bends. She smiled weakly. Then her eyes filled. Is Marissa angry? I didn't want to lie, but I didn't want to pour poison into her recovery either. Marissa is making choices, I said carefully. That's not on you. Nora looked down at her brace. Did I ruin your marriage? No. She didn't believe me. I wasn't sure I did either yet. Then Elaine sent me the screenshot. It came late on a Tuesday, just after Marissa had gone to bed. My phone buzzed with a message from Elaine. I hate sending this, but you need to see it. The screenshot was from a side chat I wasn't in. Elaine had received it from a cousin who had apparently had enough of the family narrative. The message was from Marissa to her sister. If he signs, I finally have leverage. If he doesn't, then everyone sees he chose Nora over me. I read it once. Then again. Then a third time. Leverage. Not security. Not emotional safety. Not boundaries. Leverage. There are words that end marriages even before anyone files paperwork. That was one of them. I forwarded the screenshot to Grant and asked if I could use it, since it had been sent to me by someone who had access to the conversation. He told me not to post it online, not to threaten anyone with it, and to preserve it exactly as received. So I printed it and added it to the folder. After that, I started building a timeline. The accident date, the hospital discharge, the 8-week plan I wrote, Marissa's first group chat message, the dinner where she humiliated Nora, Diane's property questions, the email about ownership transfer options, the message about leverage. I wasn't building it to destroy Marissa. I was building it because she had already built a story where I was guilty no matter what I did. If I helped Nora, I was choosing my sister over my wife. If I refused to sign, I was proving I didn't care about Marissa's security. If I signed, she finally had leverage. There was no version where I got to be a decent husband and a decent brother. She had made sure of that. The final family meeting came from Diane, of course. We need to talk like adults, she said on the phone. No accusations. No drama. Just family. By then, I knew just family meant a room full of people prepared to vote on my life. I asked who would be there. Marissa, Trevor, me, Elaine if you insist, and a few others. Nora doesn't need to come. This is really about your marriage. That was the only thing Diane and I agreed on. Nora did not need to be there. I told Elaine everything before the meeting. Not every painful detail, but enough. She sat across from me at a diner, stirring cream into coffee she never drank. You know they're going to try to make you lose your temper, she said. I know. Don't give them that. I won't. She looked at the folder beside me. Are you sure? No, I said. But I'm done being the only one expected to be decent in private while they lie in public. Diane held the meeting in her dining room, the same room where Marissa had humiliated Nora. That felt intentional. The table was set like a normal family dinner, but nobody had served food. There were water glasses, a plate of crackers, and a stack of napkins no one touched. Marissa sat beside Diane. Trevor leaned against the wall with his arms folded. Elaine sat near me, quiet and steady. A couple of relatives hovered at the edges, probably expecting an apology from me. The folder sat on my lap. Diane began. We are not attacking you, she said. We are asking you to be a husband. Trevor nodded. That's all this is. I looked at Marissa. Is that all this is? She lifted her chin. Her eyes were red, but I couldn't tell if she had been crying or preparing to. I feel unsafe in my own marriage, she said. Because Nora needed help after an accident? Because you keep minimizing what it does to me. I gave you a written plan with limits. You gave me a plan for how to bring the problem into our home. Elaine shifted in her chair, but stayed silent. Diane folded her hands. Flynn, as a mother, I'm going to say this plainly. If you expect Marissa to trust you after this, then you need to show her on paper that her future is protected. There it was. On paper how? I asked. Marissa glanced at Diane. Diane answered. There are options. Ownership adjustments. Beneficiary updates. A written agreement. Nothing unreasonable. Just something that proves your wife is not disposable. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the whole thing was so polished. You want me to sign documents transferring control of our property because my sister got hit by a truck. Marissa snapped, "Don't twist it. I'm trying to understand it." "You understand." Her voice sharpened. "You just don't like being held accountable." Trevor pushed off the wall. A husband can't keep running to his sister and expect his wife to feel secure. "I didn't run to my sister," I said. "I ran to a hospital." Marissa's eyes filled again. "You can either protect our future or keep rescuing your sister. You don't get both." The room went very still. That was the line she had been waiting to deliver. I could tell. Diane's face had that small, satisfied look people get when they think the trap has closed. I looked at Marissa for a long moment. Then I set the folder on the table. The sound was soft, but everyone heard it. "You're right," I said. "I don't get both. So I'm choosing the future where nobody secretly moves my life under their mother's name." Diane blinked. "What is this supposed to be?" I opened the folder. "Paper," I said, "since everyone suddenly respects it so much." Marissa's face changed first. Not guilt exactly. Recognition. I took out the 8-week plan and placed it on the table. "This is the plan I gave Marissa before any of you started saying Nora was moving in forever. 8 weeks. Written boundaries. Expenses. Review dates. No guests without asking. No permanent arrangement." Nobody spoke. I placed the group chat screenshots beside it. This is the first time Marissa told the family I was making her the villain for wanting the marriage protected. Notice she left out the 8-week limit. Marissa whispered, "Flynn." I didn't look at her. I placed the notes from Diane's phone call next. This is the day Diane asked whose name was on the house, what credit lines existed, and who my beneficiaries were. Diane's cheeks flushed. I asked as a mother. "You asked like someone making an inventory." Trevor frowned, but he didn't interrupt. Then I placed the email on the table. This is from the document preparation office. Subject, ownership transfer options. Addressed to Marissa. Diane copied. It mentions transfer options, beneficiary updates, and a consultation. Diane reached for the paper. I put my hand on it before she could take it. "You can read it from there." Her mouth tightened. Marissa started crying then. Quietly at first. "You went through my things." "No," I said. "This came to our shared household inbox. The same inbox we both use for bills. You saved it to humiliate me." "I saved it because you were preparing documents while telling everyone this was about emotional safety." Diane leaned forward. "Protecting my daughter doesn't make me a villain. Protecting your daughter doesn't require putting my life under your name." That landed. One of the relatives near the doorway looked at Diane, then at the email, then down at the floor. Trevor's arms slowly uncrossed. I took out the final screenshot. My hand was steady, which surprised me. This one is from Marissa to her sister. It was forwarded to me by someone in that conversation. I didn't ask for it, but I'm glad I have it. Marissa's face went white. I read it aloud because if I handed it over first, Diane would talk over it. If he signs, I finally have leverage. If he doesn't, then everyone sees he chose Nora over me. Nobody moved. Even Diane didn't have a line ready. I let the silence do what yelling never could. Then I said, "I asked for 8 weeks of compassion. You used it to build a paper trap." Marissa covered her face. "You made me look like a monster." "No," I said. "I made the timeline visible." Diane found her voice again. "This is cruel. You brought private marital issues into a family setting." I looked around the room. This family setting was created to pressure me into signing documents. Don't act surprised that I brought the documents. Trevor rubbed a hand over his mouth. "Marissa, what the hell?" She turned on him immediately. "Don't you start." He held up both hands and stepped back. That was the first crack in her audience. Diane tried one more time. "Flynn," emotions ran high. Marissa was scared. Women need security. You can't blame her for wanting leverage when she felt powerless. I stared at her. "You just admitted the word was leverage." Her mouth opened, then closed. Elaine spoke for the first time. "Nora was injured. She needed help. You all turned that into a property grab." Diane snapped, "Stay out of this." Elaine's voice didn't rise. "No." I watched Nora sit at this table while Marissa shamed her for being hurt. I stayed quiet then because I didn't want to make it worse. I'm not staying quiet now. Marissa wiped her face. "You chose her," she said to me. "After everything, you still chose her." I felt tired down to my bones. No, Marissa. I chose not to let you use her pain as collateral. She flinched at that word. Good. I closed the folder halfway, but left the papers visible. From now on, any conversation about money, property, insurance, beneficiaries, or separation happens through attorneys. Not in your mother's dining room. Not in a group chat. Not through family votes. Diane said, separation? Marissa looked at me like the word had slapped her. I nodded. Yes. You're throwing away our marriage over this? Marissa asked. No, I said. I'm ending the version of it where you can punish me for having compassion and then call it security. She stood up so fast her chair hit the wall. You're cold. That almost made me smile, not because I felt amused, but because if I had shouted, I would have been unstable. If I stayed calm, I was cold. There was always a label ready. I'm careful, I said. I picked up the folder. Diane pointed at it. Those are copies, right? I looked at her. For the first time all night, she seemed nervous. Yes, I said. They are. I left with Elaine. No one followed me into the driveway. In my car, I sat with both hands on the steering wheel for a full minute before starting the engine. Elaine stood beside the passenger door and waited, giving me the dignity of not asking if I was okay. I wasn't. But I was clear. That night, Marissa called me 11 times. I didn't answer until the next morning, after I had spoken to Grant. When I finally picked up, her voice was raw. You made me look like a monster. No, I said. I made the timeline visible. You keep saying that like it makes what you did okay. You tried to have your mother help you push me into signing documents. I was scared. You wrote leverage. I was venting. You copied your mother on transfer paperwork. I needed options. You used my sister's accident to corner me. She went silent. Then, softer, she said, so that's it? You're just done. I'm done with private manipulation and public accusations. So you're choosing Nora. I closed my eyes. Even after everything, she went back to the same script. I'm choosing a life where compassion isn't treated like a weakness. Over the next few weeks, I did exactly what Grant told me to do. I didn't empty accounts. I didn't make dramatic moves. I didn't post the screenshots. I didn't call Marissa names to anyone who would listen. I separated what I was legally allowed to separate. I froze or restricted shared credit lines only after legal advice. I changed passwords to my personal accounts. I reviewed beneficiaries where I could. I documented every household expense. I let Grant handle formal communication about property and separation. Marissa hated the quiet more than she would have hated a fight. She sent long texts. You're punishing me for wanting to feel safe. I didn't respond emotionally. Please send any financial concerns through counsel. She sent. I hope Nora is worth losing your wife. I wrote. Nora did not cause this. Then I stopped replying unless it involved logistics. Diane tried calling me from different numbers. I didn't answer. Trevor texted once. I didn't know about the leverage thing. I believed him. Not because Trevor was innocent in the way he had treated me, but because his silence at the dinner had looked real. I replied. Now you do. He didn't answer. Nora moved into the accessible rental and slowly started getting better. The insurance company finally approved part of the claim after Grant helped me understand which documents Nora needed to push harder. The tow yard fees were reduced, not erased, but reduced enough that she could breathe. Her friend's GoFundMe paid for a few medical copays and rides to follow-up appointments. Nora still hated needing help, but she stopped apologizing every time I called. One evening, I brought her groceries. She was sitting at the small kitchen table with her leg propped on a chair, sorting medical bills into piles with sticky notes. You look like me, I said. She looked down at the labeled piles. That's insulting. It should be. She smiled for the first time in weeks. Then her face shifted. Did I ruin your marriage? She had asked before. This time, I answered better. No, I said. You showed me what was already cracked. Her eyes filled. I never wanted to move into your house. I know. I would have slept on Elaine's couch before I let Marissa hate me in person every day. I know that too. She looked away. She made me feel like being hurt was some kind of manipulation. That made my chest tighten. That's what she does, I said. She turns needs into crimes. Nora nodded, but she didn't say anything else. Marissa and I met once in person after that, in Grant's office with her attorney present. She looked different. Smaller, but not softer. Angry in a controlled way. She did not apologize for the transfer paperwork. She said she had been exploring security options. She did not apologize for humiliating Nora. She said she had spoken from a place of fear. She did not apologize for the leverage message. She said private texts should not be used against someone. Grant barely reacted. He had probably heard worse before breakfast. When the meeting ended, Marissa caught me near the hallway. For a second, I saw the woman I had married. The one who used to steal fries off my plate and fall asleep during movies she insisted she wanted to watch. The one whose car sound I knew before the engine went quiet. Then she said, "You know, if you had just made me feel like I came first, none of this would have happened." And just like that, the grief hardened into something I could carry. "I made you my wife," I said. "You tried to make yourself my owner." Her face twisted. "That's not fair." Neither was using my sister's hospital discharge as a bargaining chip. I walked out before she could answer. The separation was not clean, because separations rarely are. There were arguments through attorneys, lists of property, account statements, and conversations about who kept what. Marissa fought hard over things she had never cared about before. Diane kept trying to insert herself until Grant made it clear all communication had to go through proper channels. What changed was that I no longer tried to manage Marissa's version of reality. If she told relatives I abandoned her, I sent no speech. I didn't beg anyone to believe me. The people who had seen the folder already knew enough. The ones who still wanted me to be the villain were going to choose that no matter what I said. Elaine stayed close to Nora. That mattered more. One afternoon, weeks after the dinner, Elaine called me and said, "Your sister laughed today." I was in the grocery store standing in front of shelves of pasta, and for some reason, that almost broke me. "Good," I said. "That girl needed to laugh." "Yeah. So do you." I looked down at my cart. Coffee, laundry detergent, a frozen pizza I didn't even want. The ordinary pieces of a life that had been split open and was still somehow continuing. "I'll get there," I said. And I meant it. People think the big moment is when you expose the truth. The folder on the table, the pale faces, the silence after a sentence like leverage. And yes, that moment mattered. I won't pretend it didn't feel good to watch the people who had cornered me suddenly realize I had brought receipts. But the real change came afterward. It came when I stopped explaining basic decency to people committed to misunderstanding it. It came when I stopped treating Marissa's approval as the measure of whether I was a good husband. It came when Nora called me after a physical therapy appointment and said, "I walked the hallway without holding the rail today, and I felt proud without also feeling guilty." I did lose my marriage. There is no clean way to say that. I lost the shared routines, the familiar driveway sound, the labeled leftovers, the version of the future I thought we had. Some nights, the house felt too quiet. Some mornings, I still expected Marissa to complain that I bought the wrong coffee. But I did not lose it because I helped my sister. I lost it because my wife saw my sister bleeding and reached for paperwork. Helping Nora survive an accident was never a betrayal of my marriage. The betrayal was Marissa using that accident to put a leash on me, then calling the leash security. I used to think being dependable meant saying yes until everyone felt safe. Now I know it also means knowing when to say no, printing the proof, closing the folder, and walking out before someone turns your compassion into a contract. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.